Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Pure French Latin fan, and today in this new video I'm gonna do something I dreamed so much to do since 2019, exactly like with my previous video. That's to say, reveal you all the potential animated movies I've imagined. If you follow me long enough in YouTube, then you already know what's my relation with the animated movies. That's to say that it became my second passion after and in addition to the Power Rangers in 2018, because I was still a child a little in my head, so that's why it had to be my second and new passion in addition to Power Rangers. And also that after in 2019, their instructive side opened my mind to the concept of the world. That's to say, to its history since the dinosaurs era to the present day, its different countries and continents, their histories, their cultures, their fauna and flora, etc. And all of that's precisely why, like I told you in my previous video, I've imagined a lot of potential animated movies I'd really like to see exist. Whether they're made by Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, Blue Sky, etc. By the way, speaking of Blue Sky, do you realize that if this studio was still existing, it could create some of these animated movies I've imagined and that I'm about to tell you about? Yes, instead of recycling things appreciated worldwide by creating remakes, we could instead make more original things that would be just as good and appreciated as the things that already exist. And that's exactly what describes all these potential animated movies I've imagined. But before I start to listen to you, as always, don't forget to like and share my video if you liked it, to subscribe and ring the bell to never miss my next video/contents, and to comment down below. So, first of all, I'm first gonna list you all these potential animated movies I've imagined before going into detail for each of them. I've imagined one about ancient Egypt, another one about India like I already told you in my previous video, one about Turkey, one about Middle Ages, one about Europe, one about the mountain, one about North and South Poles, or maybe it should be two individual movies, yes, I don't know, for these two continents. One about Australia, one about the Western The Farm, one about Jamaica, one about the pets. How could be A Bug's Life 2 and Kingdom of the Sun, like I already spoke to you about in my video about the underrated and overrated animated movies for me, one about Spy, and one about sports. Well, honestly, I've also imagined two others about Japan and Thailand, but I'm not very sure if it's worth making an animated movie for each one of these two countries, like we already have Kung Fu Panda for China, and therefore for East Asia, and it's already a lot for East Asia. And yes, I'm gonna speak to you about each of these potential animated movies in exactly the same order I just gave you. So, logically, that means we're gonna start with the one I've imagined about ancient Egypt. So, before anyone tells me, yes, thank you, I already know that there's already the DreamWorks Prince of Egypt, but sorry, it doesn't represent ancient Egypt well. It's just an adaptation of the Bible's Moses and the Ten Commandments story. But don't worry, I still love it. It's still one of my favorite DreamWorks movies, and also an awesome adaptation of this Bible story. But for the one I've imagined, their ancient Egypt would be really well represented. And how will you ask me? I'm gonna tell you. First, I can tell you that this one would be exactly the same kind of animated movie than Aladdin and the Lion King. Because just like the latter two, it would be very grandiose, luminous, epic, sunny, and powerful. And yes, it has to be made by Disney with exactly the same graphisms and visual style of the second Disney era of the 90s. And if you want to know the story I've imagined for it, well, here it is. The movie would begin with white shots of the desert and also of the various locations and monuments in the city where the pharaoh's palace is situated, like the pyramids, a sphinx, caravans, the marketplace, etc. Whether it's during the rising sun or in broad daylight. And just like the Simba's birth at the beginning of The Lion King, the pharaoh with his wife would celebrate the birth of their new son and prince, who would obviously be the main hero of the movie, with and in front of their entire people and kingdom. And yes, of course, just like Mufasa and Simba in The Lion King, when the Egyptian prince grows up, his father, the pharaoh, therefore, shows him the entire kingdom covered by sunlight and explains him that he'll be the next pharaoh after him when he'll no longer be of this world. And yes, of course, don't worry, I thought about a love interest for the hero, and it would be, of course, a beautiful Egyptian girl who would be, of course, his lover and an official Disney ancient Egyptian princess. Because yes, I really want to see an Egyptian Disney princess. And for the villain of the movie, it would be the pharaoh's advisor, a little like Aladdin's Jafar. In any case, he would be the pharaoh's second who would think he's more worthy to rule the kingdom than the pharaoh, and he would use a spell to give life to all of the kingdom's mummies so they serve him. Yes, you heard me well, just like Scar has a hyena's army in The Lion King because we're in sub-Saharan Africa on the savannah side. In this animated movie about ancient Egypt, the main villain would have a mummy's army at his service. And the general of this mummy's army would be the mummy of a pharaoh. And of course, with their help, he would put a plan in place to kill the pharaoh, which would force the hero to escape and leave his kingdom, and so to be lost and alone, just like Simba in The Lion King after the death of his father Mufasa. And obviously, also so he takes the place of the pharaoh, and therefore, so he reigns as a tyrant over the kingdom. And just like Frollo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the villain would think that all of his bad actions make him someone good in the eyes of the Egyptian gods, and also that the gods would approve what he does, and that they also would think, just like himself, that it would be a better rule for the kingdom than the pharaoh. And remember the scene in Balto when Balto's below a layer of snow that he then comes out of from it and sees a white wall in front of him with whom he hauls after he decides to don't give up and also to accept his wolf health? Well, I had a similar idea for this potential animated movie about ancient Egypt when the hero's lost in the Sahara Desert. That's to say, at some point he would be under sand, then when he gets out there is a cobra in front of him, and this majestic cobra might be also a sort of renewed hope for the hero, but not only him. Yes, in that scene there might also be the pharaoh spirit talking to his son to tell him to don't give up and to take his place back, exactly like in the Mufasa spirit scene in The Lion King. And for the climax of the movie, well, of course the hero comes back to his kingdom, and with the help of his lover, his mother, and the guards of the kingdom, he would fight the villain and his mommy's army to free his kingdom. And for the final confrontation, well, obviously it's the hero who would fight the villain while the other heroes fight the mommy's army. And how would he defeat him? First, they would fight in a duel with weapons in a large hall without a ceiling and roof, with statues of all the ancient Egyptian gods. And to finish off the villain, the hero / the young Egyptian prince would merge with all of the Egyptian gods by calling them to punish the villain. Then they all appear emerging from the statues, and they are also in a spiritual / spectral form, and they all merge with the hero. And at this moment, while continuing to merge with the hero, they raise him and the villain above the Great Hall. And once they finished merging with the hero and arrived above the Great Hall, the hero is therefore luminous with all of the gods merged with him. And with this, he speaks with his voice merged with theirs to the villain, to judge him for all his actions, and of course to tell him his punishment. So with this, the villain's obviously shocked and disillusioned to see that unlike what he always thought, the gods never approved all he did. And with this, the hero and the gods carry out the sentence to make him disappear and to take his life, causing him to disappear completely and permanently, and therefore taking his life and sending him to the world of the dead where forever. And yes, I know this villain's death and defeat looks really like that of Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 9. And after this victory, the spell of the mummies is broken and they therefore become normal again, because yes, to break this spell, we had to destroy the one who cast it. And obviously, the hero becomes the new pharaoh of the kingdom after his father, and he celebrates this victory, an event with his family, his lover, his friends, his guard, and the people of his kingdom who are now freed from the reign of terror of the villain. And yes, with this Egyptian princess, they both have then several, I don't know, but in any case, they'll have at least one shell that they show to their people. And now let's pass to the one I've imagined about India I already talked to you about in my previous video. And yes, this one also has to be made by Disney with exactly the same graphisms and visual style of the second Disney era of the 90s. And get ready, because for this one, it's the one for which I had the most ideas. Like I already told you in my previous video, this animated movie will represent this country much better than the Jungle Book, and you're gonna see that it's a real mix of Aladdin, The Lion King, Tarzan, my animated movie about ancient Egypt I just talked to you about, and a little The Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, Hercules, Brother Bear, Servant of the Cimarron, and Kung Fu Panda. So, let's start with this story. The story could start showing us the city with its citizens, the Indian culture, a wide shot of the Maharaja's palace, and of course, the Indian jungle. And remember what I told you in my previous video, that in this movie there would be a Bengal tiger king who would rule in the entire Indian jungle and who also would crush and surpass Mufasa in The Lion King in terms of quality. For all the people who prefer the tigers to the lions like me. And by the way, if this arrives, yes, this will also mark the moment when the tiger will have the reputation that rightfully belongs to him. That's to say, being the most appreciated feline in the world instead of the lion. Well, obviously, in this intro, we would also show us this Bengal tiger king who would be called Raja. Yes, I know, exactly like Jasmine's tiger in Aladdin. With his wife, a Bengal tiger's queen. Their advisor / second, a peacock like it's the second symbol of India under the tiger. And besides, this peacock advisor / second would have his own unique way of bowing to his lords. That's to say, opening his will in front of them. And yes, again, he would be a bit of a mix of the Lion King Zazu and Hercules Hermes. And finally, the royal couple's newborn son, yes, their baby tiger cub that they would show as the new prince to their entire kingdom, which is of course the animals of the Indian jungle. And of course, obviously, this entire intro is accompanied by a song. But unlike what this Royal Bengal Tiger's couple believed, it wasn't going to be their new biological son who would become the next king of the Indian jungle, but the hero of the movie who's gonna be presented to us right after. Because yes, right after this intro, we're in a scene during a stormy night on the Ganges River, where we see a human couple with their baby on board a traditional Indian boat, obviously trying desperately to save themselves and to go back to their home. But obviously again, things don't go as planned and the boat gets stuck between rocks and the riverbank. And with the impact, the humans couple fall into the water, which obviously means that their lives end in this way, leaving their baby in the basket where his mother placed him on board the boat. And the next morning, after the storm ended, the weather was once again beautiful and sunny in the Indian jungle, and therefore including on the Ganges River. Back with the Indian jungle's royal family, the tigress queen heard the baby crying in the distance. So with this, she obviously wants to see what it is, and when she arrives at the Ganges River, she approaches the boat, and when she sees the human baby, she's obviously at first very surprised, and by seeing the baby smiling, laughing and being happy at her, thanks to the maternal instinct, she doesn't eat him, but on the contrary, she starts to feel affection and then right after, love for him. So with this, she tenderly caresses his face against him, and he too caresses her affectionately with his little arms and hands. But then the tigress queen feels something. With her weight, the boat was freeing itself from the rocks, so without any hesitation, she takes the basket with the baby still inside with her teeth, and she jumps out on the ground just in time just before the boat completely broke free from the rocks and was swept away by the river current. And right after this, she goes back home with the basket containing the baby, obviously to join her family. When she finally arrives, she obviously shows the baby to her son, the peacock advisor, and of course obviously, to her husband Raja. When the latter sees the baby human, he's at first very surprised, like he never trusted and liked humans because he often saw them coming into the jungle to hunt and or to cut trees. Then he smells the baby, her wife tells him where she found him, and then he reminds her what he thinks about humans. But she answers him that this is a baby human, and that with this, he doesn't have any chance to hurt them, that he needs them to take care of him, and also that having a human by their side might be useful not only for their family, but also for their kingdom. Then the peacock advisor tells to Raja that her wife is right when she says that having a human by their side might be very useful, and by hearing this, Raja is very hesitant. He doesn't know what to do, but he finally has an idea to have the answer to this question. Going to an Hindu temple in the jungle to ask the Hindu gods what decision he must take. He therefore goes there immediately, and when he arrives and enters the temple, he greets the gods and tells them what he came for. Then the gods appear in a spiritual slash spectral form and explain him that if this human baby ended up in their life to him and his family, it's not a coincidence. It's because they have an idea, a plan. But they can't tell him what is it right now, so they ask him to wait the moment and in the meantime to raise this child just like his biological son and future children, and also to train him to become the next king of the Indian jungle like he's born before Raja and his wife's biological son. By hearing that, Raja is surprised and says to the gods what he thinks about humans. And the gods answer him that they know it well, but to make an exception this time with this human baby. They then tell him that he's a great, noble and good king, and even that he's the best king the Indian jungle have ever had, and that is precisely why they all trust him. That's why they ask him to trust them as well. Raja decides therefore to listen to them, and even tells them that if this request comes from the gods, then he doesn't see any reason to don't trust them. The gods are therefore satisfied and return to their divine realm by saying one last thing to Raja, that's to say, you must believe. And yes, I know all this scene I've imagined looks really like the discussion scene between Oogway and Shifu in Kung Fu Panda, when Oogway asks to Shifu to train Po to make him the dragon warrior and also to believe. Then after this, Raja goes back to his home. When he arrives, he tells to his family what the gods asked him to do to his family's great delight, and he also notices that the human baby established a very tender and close relationship with the biological tiger cub, exactly like during the first encounter between Hercules and Pegasus in Hercules. Then the human baby starts to caress and hug Raja's leg, and even to feel affection for him, notably by laughing cutely at him. So by seeing this, Raja starts to feel affection and even love for this human baby, just like his wife did before him. So from this moment, they gave a name to their new adoptive son and also started to take care of him just like their gods asked. And yes, of course, obviously, they don't forget to warn their entire kingdom that there's been a change of future king, even if that surprised them at first, just like Raja before them, like it's the very first time that a human is gonna rule the kingdom, especially after everything humans who came in the jungle did. But in any case, years passed and the young Indian child grew up happily with his adoptive family. And when he became a young child, his adoptive father decided to show him the entire kingdom, that's to say the entire Indian jungle, of course, obviously, and that when he'll no longer be of this world, the young man will have to rule in this place. And then in the distance, the hero sees the human city with the marriage's palace and asks to his adoptive father if this place is also part of the kingdom, to which Raja answers him that their kingdom stops at this border and that he must never go there. And yes, thank you, I know this scene I've imagined looks obviously like that between Mufasa showing the kingdom to Simba in The Lion King, and also that where Aslan shows care powerful to Peter in the Chronicles of Narnia. And yes, during these years where the hero grows up, his two adoptive parents have two more children. A young female tiger just like Nala for the lions in The Lion King, and another young obese tiger male. Still during these years where the hero grows up, we show us that among his adoptive siblings, it's with the first and eldest young tiger male born after him, who's obviously the Bengal tiger counterpart of Simba in The Lion King. Because yes, as you certainly already understood by yourselves, Raja's the Bengal tiger counterpart from Mufasa, and the same for his wife, for Sarabi in The Lion King. That he's the closest, just like we saw it before and sooner when they steal our babies. Still, during these years, the hero becomes friends with a young elephant male belonging to a wild Asian elephant herd, just like Chantor in Tarzan, and obviously he also learns to communicate and acting with the other Indian jungle animals, and obviously again also to surf on trees and to swing with the vines, just like Tarzan in the eponymous Disney movie. And when he becomes a young adult, well, there we visit the Maharaja's palace on the human city to meet the Maharaja, and of course, obviously, also his family and employees. That's to say his wife, the Maharani, their second who also would be the official main villain of the movie, who just like Jafar in Aladdin, Scar in The Lion King, Flora in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Clayton in Tarzan, Tai Lung in Kung Fu Panda, and the main villain of my animated movie about ancient Egypt I just told you about previously, not only would try to rule the kingdom instead of his sovereigns, because he thinks he's more worthy to rule the kingdom than them, but who also would want to have a Bengal tiger skin as a cape and a pick of Will's feathers above his head to prove his superiority over his sovereigns, and also to show to the people of the kingdom that he's the best in the whole kingdom according to him. And yes, you can understand this, he wants to show this by wearing something related to the two main symbols of the country. A little like with Tai Lung with the dragon warrior title in Kung Fu Panda. And yes, just like following the Hunchback of Notre Dame and the main villain of my animated movie about ancient Egypt, he also would think that all his bad actions make him someone good in the eyes of the gods, and also that the gods would approve what he does, and that they also would think, just like himself, that he would be a better ruler for the kingdom than the Maharaja. We would also meet the Maharaja's guard with their little, just like Rasul and the other Sultan's guard in Aladdin. And finally, of course, obviously, the daughter of the Maharaja and his wife, the princess of the city. And yes, of course, she obviously will be the love interest for the hero, and it would be, of course, a beautiful Indian girl who would be, of course, his lover and an official Disney Indian princess. Because yes, I also really want to see an Indian Disney princess. And just like Jasmine in Aladdin, we could say that she's enough of being prisoner in her palace and also of being forced to be married to one of the princes as suitors for her. So she secretly runs away from home. And just like Jasmine and Jane, she doesn't only discover how the city is outside of the palace, she even decides to explore further outside of the city in the wilderness. Because she always loved nature, so she decides to see it for real with her own eyes. And yes, of course, it's there that she's gonna meet the hero for the first time. The encounter would be like this. While the hero is eating a mango or on a mango tree branch, he spots the princess below and further away, and it's not only love at first sight for him, he's also more than surprised to see a living being just like him for the very first time of his life. But then the princess gets in danger because at one point, she sleeps and finds herself dangling over a precipice. So the hero doesn't waste a second and rushes to save her by grabbing a vine to swing on, and then he catches the princess just as she begins to fall. And of course, by seeing the young man saving her by swinging on a vine, the princess is extremely surprised, and then the hero lowers her safely onto a tree branch. Perhaps the very same branch of the same mango tree where he was. Just like Aladdin and Tarzan when they see their lovers for the first time and saves them in their movies. Then of course they look at each other in the same tree branch, and the princess is still so surprised to see a human living in the nature. They also try to communicate, and by doing so, they also take the opportunity to introduce themselves. Then the princess asks to the hero to take her back to her home by showing him the palace surrounded by the rest of the city, and the young man does what she asks him by taking her with his arm and by taking a vine with his other arm to swing on towards the city. Meanwhile, while the hero's tiger siblings along with the peacock advisor and the elephant friend were searching for the young man, they stumble to the great and unpleasant surprise upon the city where the humans they're fleeing from live and from whom they prefer to keep their distance. And this is exactly where the hero's gonna land with his future lover. When the latter sees the tiger siblings, the peacock advisor and the elephant friend, she's at the same time very surprised and happy to see real tigers for the first time with her own eyes. And when the hero rejoins them, he does so with joy, and his family is also happy to see him again, and so including his eldest adoptive brother. And by seeing this, the princess immediately understands that he is one of them. And right after by seeing the princess, the hero's adoptive tiger siblings, the peacock advisor and the elephant friend are therefore logically so surprised and stunned to see a human from civilization right in front of them with the hero. But right after, Raja appears. And furious to see a human with his family, he starts to roar loudly at the princess, and the latter falls on the ground terrified. The tiger's queen appears in turn, and she is also surprised to see a human with her family. Then Raja orders to all of the family to go, and all of them obey him, but the hero hesitates, not wanting to abandon the girl he has just met. However, feeling he has no choice, especially with his adoptive mother pressuring him to come with them, he finally leaves, abandoning the princess and vowing to return to her. Then the princess returns to her home and tells everything that happened to her in the jungle, obviously to her parents, but also to the villain and the leader of the guard. Back home in the jungle, Raja orders to his family to stay away from humans, including his adoptive son, but the latter tries to make him understand they're not a danger, which his adoptive father obviously refuses to believe, and he orders him to protect their family and kingdom and to stay away from humans. The young man therefore goes away in anger. His adoptive mother tells him for once to listen to Raja, but the young man answers her still angrily by asking her why they never told him there were creatures like him, and he runs away to sit down somewhere still angrily. Later, he decides to go to the city to try to find the princess, which he does discreetly without his adoptive family, especially Raja, seeing him. And when he arrives in the city, first, he's very surprised to see all these other humans like him and the princess. Secondly, when all these other humans see him, they're also very surprised to see a young man wearing only a loincloth and also moving with such an agility. Third, when he sees all the animals that are there for the needs and/or leisure of humans, whether it's the elephants with their Indian decorations that serve as mounts for some humans, the sacred cows and the cobras for the snake charmers, there too he's gonna have a huge surprise. And do you know what my father told me when I told him about this idea? That the hero's gonna try to free these animals because he's gonna think they're enslaved. Don't you think like me that what he answered me is just totally true and obvious? And by trying to do this, the hero is therefore chased by the guards. Yes, they try to capture him during a chase, but the hero manages to escape them and then to reach the palace. And like he first goes through the garden, he also sees the elephants and horses of the royal guard there, and then he enters into the palace. But a few moments later, after entering, he's once again chased and then captured by the guards and their leader, who take him by force to the Maharaja. But when the latter sees the young man with his family and the villain, the princess recognizes him and told to her parents that he's the young man who saved her life in the jungle. By hearing that, the Maharaja orders to his soldier to release the hero, because even though he's not from civilization like them, he still saved the life of their daughter to him and his wife, so they owe him their lives. The soldiers obey him, and the hero therefore approaches the princess, whom he is happy to see again, and he also approaches her parents and the villain. And like the royal family are also curious to know how it looks like the hero's royal adoptive tiger's family, they try to ask him, but obviously he doesn't understand their questions. So the princess, with the help of her parents, the leader of the guard and the villain, decides to teach him how to communicate with them, partly by making him discover their world with the Indian culture, etc. And of course, the hero shows his word to the princess in return. That's to say, the fauna and flora of the Indian jungle, and he even teaches her how to swing on vines and to surf on the tree branches. And yes, you can understand this, this is how they grow closer. By making discover their worlds to each other, just like my favorite Disney couple, Tarzan and Jane's couple. But when the hero finally starts to understand and to speak the language of the humans, he still doesn't want to show his adoptive family to the princess, her parents and the leader of the guard and the villain, because he knows very well that Raja will never let them get near to his family, and also that he would attack them if they tried. And one evening, a ball is being held at the Maharaja's palace, and the hero will be part of it. But for this, obviously, he has to be dressed. And that's exactly what some of the Maharaja's employees will do. Yes, when the evening comes, they don't only dress the hero with real Indian prince clothes, they also put him a third eye on his forehead for the very first time in his life. And when he enters the ballroom and appears before the princess, she is amazed. Because she already found this young man so beautiful, but now that she sees him in this magnificent princely attire, she finds him even more beautiful. And during this ball, while everyone's dancing, the hero dances too with the princess, but unlike the other people, he can't help but dance by doing acrobatics in the hall, as he does when he's in the jungle with the vines and branches of the trees. And yes, obviously, after all this, just like Tarzan, the main hero hesitates to choose between living with the girl he loves, or to continue living with the Royal Bengal Tiger's family he always lived with during his entire life. Then later in the movie, I still don't know how, but the hero finally decides to take the princess, her parents, the leader of the guard, and the villain into the jungle so he finally can show them his royal adopted Bengal Tiger's family. But before doing that, he of course finds a way to lure Raja away from the territory, obviously so that he doesn't attack the princess and the other humans who are with him. And when they finally arrive in the territory, Raja's wife is surprised and also a little scared to see these other humans with his adoptive son, so she slowly backs away, but the hero tries to show her that she doesn't have anything to fear. And then the rest of the family with the peacock advisor and the elephant friend appear around the humans group. And of course, by seeing them, the humans group is amazed. The peacock advisor even opens his feathers wheel in front of them. But what the heroes don't know is that the villain was secretly marking the territory's location on a map so he can return and carry out the misdeeds he has in mind. And a few moments later, Raja reappears and is shocked not only to see the other humans in his territory with his adoptive son, but also to see that the latter had the third eye on his forehead. because he perfectly knew that this was something humans sometimes had, so by seeing this on the forehead of his adoptive son, he's therefore so disappointed and began to consider his adoptive son like a traitor. The latter begs him to spare the other humans, but obviously Raja refuses to listen to him and charges towards the other humans to kill them. By seeing this, the hero has no other choice but to throw himself at Raja, grabbing him tightly with his arms to try to restrain him, in order to allow the other humans to escape. But when they began to run away, the princess turned back to the hero and refused to abandon him, fearing something bad might happen to him. But the hero shouted her to run, and her parents also shouted her to hurry and to escape. Realizing they were right, she ran back to the palace with the other humans while continuing to worry about her future beloved. When they finally left and gone far enough, the hero released the pressure on Raja and began to feel ashamed. And of course, all the rest of the animal family watched all this in shock. The hero tries to apologize to his adoptive father, but the latter refused by reminding him that he asked him to protect their family and their kingdom, and finishes by telling him that he betrayed them all. By hearing this, the hero runs away and settles down on the tree branch from which he could see the city and the palace in the distance. His adoptive mother joined him, and he tells her that he no longer knows where he is. His mother then asked him to come with her because she wanted to show him something she should have shown him long ago. So she took him to the same Hindu temple we saw at the beginning of the movie, where Raja went to ask to the gods for advice. So the latter revealed to the hero how he ended up in this royal family of Bengal tigers. When they arrived and entered the temple, the young man posed his question to the gods, and they answered him by showing him images of the stormy night when his biological parents lost their lives, and also images of the following day when his adoptive mother found him in his basket aboard the boat and took him to her family. By learning all this, the hero was surprised, and his adoptive mother told him that she wants him to be happy no matter what he decides. So he made the decision to go and live with the princess he loved and her family, and that's why he puts on his princess outfit again that he won during the night of the ball. He then goes out from the temple with, or maybe after, his adoptive mother, and there heartbreaking and tearful farewells took place between them. Then the hero left in the direction of the city, and so in the direction of the palace. And when he arrived in the following day, he was greeted by the princess and her parents, who were not only happy to see that he was well, but also that he decided to live with them. Before entering the palace, the princess told the young man he couldn't imagine the wonderful life that awaits him. Then she went inside the palace, but before the hero does the same, he cast one last look at his former home, the Indian jungle, which he already misses. Right after he entered the palace, but there he saw something terrible. Half of the guards and soldiers had locked the Maharaja, his wife, the princess who cried out for the help to the hero, the leader of the guard, and the other half of the guards and soldiers still loyal to the Maharaja in a cell, because they've actually been in league with the villain from the beginning and had therefore betrayed the Maharaja and his own. So they ran to the hero to try to lock him too, but he tried to escape as best as he could. But unfortunately, despite good attempts, he's been captured as well, and at this moment, the main villain appeared in front of him. When the hero asks him for help, the villain of course reveals his true nature and evil intentions, which obviously surprises and angers the hero. And before the villain locks him and carries out his horrible plans, he thanks the hero for having revealed, even if it was unintentionally, the location of the Royal Bank Tiger's family's territory. So he set off and ordered to some of his men to lock the hero with the others and to stand guard outside the cell while he and his other minions go in the jungle. And when the hero began to be led to the cell, he let out a big howl that reached the jungle and the ears of his young tiger elder adoptive brother and their elephant friend, who luckily were both walking in the jungle near the city before he's locked with the other heroes. And by hearing the hero's cry, they quickly realized he was in danger, so they rushed to his rescue. When they arrived at the city's entrance, they saw the villain getting out from it with his minions into the jungle. So they hid, and once the villains were far enough away, they continued on their way to the palace. Meanwhile, in the palace cell, the desperate hero, determined to save his family, tried to escape however he could, but of course, it was useless. He couldn't force open the door or break down the walls with his physical strength alone. The princess ran to him, apologized, and tried to comfort him. The dejected hero answered that no, it was his fault, that he had betrayed his family, and that his father was right. But shortly after, they all heard and felt a noise. They didn't know what it was, but it was the elephant friend accompanied by the tiger brother, who had entered the palace garden and were beginning to go inside the palace. The elephant friend's footsteps as he approached the cell caused all the loud noises and tremors in the floor. Once they reached the cell, the tiger brother and the elephant friend fought the guards who were in front of it and defeated them. And right after, with his strength, the elephant friend smashed down the cell door. By seeing them, the hero was overjoyed and thanked them both. And now there was no more time to lose. He absolutely had to stop the villain and his minions from hurting his family. So he rushed towards the jungle, followed by the other heroes. Along the way, he called upon every reinforcement possible. First, the elephants of the guard with their ancient decorations, and yes, the guards and soldiers with their leader still loyal to the Maharaja, all mounted these elephants and also to their horses to follow the hero, while the hero's elephant friend carried the princess and her parents on his back, always followed by the younger tiger brother running at his side. By entering the city, the hero also called upon a group of sacred cows, and still followed by this army that didn't finish to grow, he raced towards the city exit to enter the jungle. Meanwhile, in the jungle, in the territory of the royal Bengal tiger's family, Raja saw his wife still sad by the absence of their adoptive son. He began to feel sorry for her, but at this moment, the villains appeared and started attacking them. Raja rushed towards them to try to stop them and therefore to protect his family, but unfortunately, he gets caught in one of the villains' nets. Right after this, the rest of his family who tried to escape were also captured in all the nets and also in cages. But fortunately, at the same moment, the hero, still followed by his army, who were finally in the jungle, wasn't very far away now. And it was precisely in the jungle that he continued to increase the size of his army by calling upon other animals. That's to say, a herd of wild elephants in addition to those of the palace, and yes, it's the same herd of elephants to which the hero's elephant friend belongs, Indian rhinos, at least one, water buffaloes, a pack of wolves, monkeys and gores. And while doing this, he continued to rush towards his adoptive family's territory, swinging on vines and surfing on tree branches. And while rushing forward, he also removed his clothes to be in loincloth once again, all while keeping his third eye on his forehead. Yes, he didn't remove it once since he was placed on his forehead. Meanwhile, in the tiger's territory, Raja had managed to free himself from his net by tearing it, but the villain's minions caught him with whips and another net. And at this moment, the main villain approached him and prepared to kill him by telling his minions that he thought Raja's skin would make a beautiful cape, just like he also thought that a few feathers from the peacock advisor's tail would look perfect and beautiful on his forehead. But just as he was about to kill Raja, a scream rang out, interrupting him and his minions. By hearing this same scream, Raja and his wife were first surprised, then relieved, like they guessed and understood who it was. It was the hero with his entire army who finally arrived and rushed toward the villains to stop them. By seeing this, the main villain was obviously first surprised, then furious. The hero then rushed to free his adoptive father, who was surprised and happy to see his adoptive son again. The hero, also happy, told his father that he returned to his family. While the animals and the Maharaja's guard were fighting the villain's minions, and by the way, I also added a touch of humor to this fight by including a passage where some of the villain's minions would be chased by a sacred cow who would charge towards them with her horns. Then one of them points the cow with a weapon, maybe a bow with an arrow, and the other villains shout at him to shoot, but he answers, No, I can't. Remember, we must always respect cows, no matter what happens. To which the others answer, yes, it's true. And then they get smashed by the cow, which is always charging towards them. The hero and Raja released the rest of the family, but they could only do so for the other young tiger siblings and the peacock advisor, because the main villain, by saying this, ordered two of his minions to take everything they could to the palace. The two minions obeyed by transporting the cage containing the tiger's queen, who started to roar in panic, and the main villain, for his part, decided to complete his plans by himself. But luckily, the princess, still riding on the elephant friend's back with her parents, saw the tiger's queen in danger. So, grabbing a vine as the hero had taught her, she swung towards one of the two villains carrying the cage and kicked him, causing not only the villain but also the cage to fall to the ground. And just when the other villain was about to attack the princess, the pack of wolves, or maybe the monkeys, pounced on him, which logically not only forced him to run away but also saved the princess, who ran to the cage to try and free the tiger's queen. While she tried to free her, the villain she just knocked unconscious got up and tried to attack her discreetly. But luckily the hero arrived just in time to stop him and to help the princess to free his adoptive mother. And they succeeded. But then the main villain reappears and tried to kill them, but Raja, who was near, saw him trying to do that, so he ran towards him to stop him, roaring with all his might, but by throwing himself at him, the villain killed him. While the villain smiled at what he just done, the hero saw with horror his adoptive father dying and threw himself madly at the villain, but the latter tried to kill him with his saber. The hero then found himself forced to climb the trees, and the villain followed him. The princess tries to stop him, but he throws her aside on the ground, and when he started to climbing into the tree, he shouted to the hero that once he'll be done with him, capturing his target family will be all too easy. But when he reached the top of the trees, he didn't find the hero, and there the light of a lightning bolt showed the silhouette of the hero crouching behind the back of the villain. The hero therefore threw himself on the villain behind his back. The two fell on another branch, and there a fight began between them. During the fight, the villain tried to pierce the hero with his saber against the trunk of another tree, but the hero managed to push himself slightly to the side so that the villain, carried away by his strength and momentum, planted his saber against the trunk of the tree, and there the hero pushed the villain backwards with the side of his arm and his elbow. And finally he pushed the saber still stuck in the tree to bend it in order to break it in two. By seeing this, the villain shouted a big "No!" and furious for having lost his weapon, he continued to fight hand to hand with the hero. But during the fight, the hero had another idea when he saw the same Hindu temples that we see since the beginning of the movie, where his past was revealed to him below them. That's to say, take the bad guy there, so the gods decided his punishment. Then he gave to the villain another punch in his belly with his elbow to destabilize him long enough to grab him with one arm, and then he grabs a vine with the other arm to swing while carrying the villain to the temple. And once inside, the young man tells the gods that he brought this man to them so they could decide his punishment for all his crimes. By hearing this, the villain tells the gods to instead show to the hero that everything he did was not only for them but also for the good of everyone, and that he was more worthy to rule than the Maharaja. Then the gods appeared in their spiritual / spectral form and start to merge with the hero. And at this moment, while continuing to merge with the hero, they raise him and the villain above the temple. And once they finished merging with the hero and arrived above the temple, the hero is therefore luminous and wearing Indian prince clothes with all of the gods merged with him. And with this, he speaks with his voice merged with theirs to the villain to judge him for all his actions, and of course to tell him his punishment. So with this, the villain's obviously shocked and disillusioned to see that unlike what he always thought, the gods never approved all he did. And with this, the hero and the gods carry out the sentence to make him disappear and to take his life by launching a big Om symbol of divine energy at him, which overloads the villain with mystical and divine energy, causing him to disappear completely and permanently, and therefore taking his life and sending him to the world of the dead forever. So yes, just like the main villain of my animated movie about ancient Egypt, this villain's death and defeat also looks really like that of Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 9. And right after this, the gods pot the young man down back to the ground while detaching themselves from him, and the hero, once on the ground and back to himself, sees his adoptive family and the human royal family further around Raja dying with his wife right next to him, crying by watching her husband dying. So the hero approaches and his adoptive mother leaves him her place. And once next to his adoptive father, they both begin to say their farewells, with the young man asking his father to forgive him, but Raja answers that no, and to forgive him for not having been able to see from the first day that the gods were right about him. He is the next king of the jungle, and that's why their family and their kingdom are now counting on him now. And he ends by telling him to take care of them, and then by calling him my son one last time, while placing his paw on the hero's shoulder. And then he closes his eyes. The young man then took the body of his dead father and embraced him with all his strength, crying all the tears of his body, and around him, all of the other heroes mourned and cried the death of this king, and even also the princess, her parents, and the leader of the guard. The hero then slowly laid down the body of his late adoptive father and tenderly caresses his face one last time before letting out a final sob. He then turned to the other heroes, then by looking once again at his late adoptive father, he took his lifeless body and took it to the Ganges river. Once there, he placed him on the water, and before releasing it and letting the current carry him away, he took a lotus flower and placed it on his father's body by telling him, "Rest in peace, and may the gods protect you and watch over you." Then, with these words, he pushed his father's body, letting him be carried away by the current to the same Hindu temple seen previously. And while heading towards the temple, Raja's body disappears in the fog that was in front of the temple. Just after he completely disappeared into the fog, large and powerful lights began to emerge from the temple, to the general surprise of the other heroes. And in these lights were the spirits of all the other living beings, both humans and animals, who died and who were therefore moving into the deads and the spirit world. And there a loud voice rang out, pronouncing the hero's name. The latter, recognizing his father's voice, raised his head and said, "Father?" And there the spirit of Raja appeared, above / in front of him. And of course his spirit was in a giant form, and yes, that obviously means he was greater and larger than all of the other spirits of the death realm. And then he began to tell his son to don't be sad, because he never lost him and that his spirit will always live on beside him and within him. He also added that everything he just told his son applied to the rest of their family, including the princess, his parents, and the leader of their guard. He continued telling his son that he always been proud of him and that he essentially meant what he told him before he died. That's to say that he was indeed the next king of the Indian jungle. But he also told him that he knew he couldn't live without the princess because she was the one for him, and that it was precisely why he had good news for him. He revealed him that when he arrived in the dead and spirit realm, the gods finally revealed their plan to him. That's to say that they actually chosen this young man from the very beginning, so he is the union between the human and animal kingdoms. And that's precisely why the hero and the princess had to get in couple. By hearing Raja's words, the Maharaja acknowledged that the late Tiger King was right and decreed that his daughter, the princess therefore, would henceforth have the right to marry the man she deemed worthy of her. Hearing this, the princess was overjoyed and ran to throw herself into the hero's arms, and she then announced that he was the one she's chosen. Raja then gave his blessing to the couple and told his son he had another surprise for him. The spirits of the hero's biological parents appeared before him. By seeing them, the young man was deeply surprised and moved and embraced them both. His biological parents thanked Raja and his wife for taking so good care of their son and also for raising him. And Raja and his wife answered that they were proud of him and that it was an honor to have a son like him. And right after that, the hero and the princess kissed with all their love to the applause and cheers of their now united families. And right after that, the hero climbed onto the back of his elephant friend. Then he held out his hand to his beloved. She took the hero's outstretched arm and the two began to surf on the branches and swing with the vines of the trees while passing in front of their family members. And there they stopped on the end of a tree branch that was outside the foliage, and there the camera begins to zoom out, revealing the Indian jungle with a waterfall around them. And then the camera begins to turn to the left to show us a large plan of the palace in the city. And then we go in the grand palace garden where all the inhabitants of both human and animal peoples now united. And besides, the hero's elephant friend could really get in couple with a domesticated female elephant from the palace, adorned with Indian decorations, who unlike him never lived in the jungle but has been domesticated at the palace since her birth, came to celebrate the birth of the hero and the princess's new child after the couple's wedding. The couple was together on a palace balcony with their family behind them, watching with joy and pride their people cheering them. The peacock advisor even flew over the crowd and then over the couple, and once above the couple, he opens his feathers wheel while letting out a loud and powerful cry to the crowd, all while continuing to fly above the couple. The spirit of Raja was also there in the sky to celebrate. And then the Maharaja arrived and showed the crowd the couple's new child. By seeing his first human grandchild, Raja gives him a big tender smile, and the baby, by seeing his tiger grandfather, also gives him a small cute smile and an innocent cute little laugh, which not only widens Raja's smile but also makes him give a tender little laugh to the baby, and this is where the movie ends.